So this is just a picture to summarize the phases of the decision making process. To the next slide. So step one is like identify a problem. So a problem is like issues that you have to cope with in order to achieve your goal. Every decision starts with a problem. Identifying the decisions criteria is that you have to classify the standards that is related to your issues to resolve that problem. You have to allocate the rankings of your criteria by setting the points to them, such as from 1 to 10 or whatever scales you like to set. But this way, it is easier to determine the priority of each element. So this is just exhibit 2.2 of the example in the book. Yeah, step 4, develop alternatives. Like you have to point out many different choices that could handle the problem. Another pictures of it. Analyze the alternatives. Like once you done the step 4, like you have identified all the alternatives, you must have to evaluate each alternative by using the step 2 when you have placed the criteria. In that way, you could know which is the best alternatives to make. Select an alternative. You have to choose the best alternative. Like you have to sum on the scores from step 2 and 3 to find the best solutions to your problem. Okay. Step 7, implement the alternative. When you have done on the 6th step, you put your decision into action by doing it. You cannot solve a problem without doing it. The last step is that you have to re-examine the result of your decision, whether it is good or bad. If it was not resolved, then what is wrong? You have to make up your mind with questions like that. To my next part is like decision making. So the green one is planning, and the blue one is organizing. This is just elements that managers may make. Leading and controlling, yeah. Managers need to have those. And so making decisions, rationality. Rational decisions making is like the decision makers based on their logical and consistent mind. It's like they could handle the thing wisely and play without any uncertainty. Bounded rationality is like you're rational, but that rational is limited by your knowledge. Satisfy, like accepting solutions that are good enough. You want to find a job with salaries that could achieve more than 10,000 a month, but when a commercial shows that you can get 8 million a month, then you just go for it. But later on, you find jobs with like 11 millions per month, that 11 millions per month, then you're gonna regret why. So that's called satisfied. It's called escalation of commitment. Yeah, it's like when you have commit too many satisfies, then it's called escalation of commitment. Okay, the role of intuition. Intuition is like one of the five senses of one. It's like the sixth sense of your body. Intuitive decisions making. It's like intuitive decision making is like it's based on your conceptual mind, your experience and feelings that you may design what to do. This picture shows that what is intuition. Yeah, just read. Evidence-based management is called EB blah blah blah. It's like you use what is tangible evidence to manage your issues.
Hi, I'm Yi and I will talk about types of decisions and decision-making conditions. There are two different types of conditions, and the first one is structural problems. Structural problems are straightforward, familiar, and easily defined problems. Because it's not an unusual occurrence, there's probably some standardized routine for handling it. This is what we call a program decision. A repetitive decision that can be handled by a routine approach. There are three types of structural problems: procedure, rule, policy. Procedure is a series of sequential steps used to respond to a well-structured problem. For instance, a purchasing manager receives a request from a warehouse manager for 15 tablets for the inventory class. A rule is an explicit statement that tells managers what can or cannot be done. Rules are frequently used because they are simple to follow and ensure consistency. For example, rules about lateness and absenteeism permit supervisors to make disciplinary decisions rapidly and fairly. The third type of program decisions is a policy, a guideline for making decisions. In contrast to a rule, a policy establishes general parameters for the decision maker rather than specifically stating what should or should not be done. Policies typically contain an ambiguous term that leaves interpretation up to the decision maker. The second type of decision is unstructured problems and non-program decisions. Unstructured problems are problems that are new or unusual and for which information is ambiguous or incomplete. Whether to build a new manufacturing facility in China is an example of an unstructured problem. Non-program decisions are unique and non-recurring and involve custom-made solutions. This table describes the differences between programmed and non-programmed decisions. Lower-level managers mostly rely on program decisions because they come from familiar and repetitive problems. As managers move up to the organizational hierarchy, the problems they confront become more unstructured. About decision-making conditions, there are three conditions: certainty, risk, uncertainty. Certainty is a situation in which a manager can make accurate decisions because all outcomes are known. As you might expect, most managerial decisions aren't like this. A far more common situation is one of risk, a situation in which the decision maker is able to estimate the likelihood of certain outcomes. Under risk, managers have historical data from past personal experience or secondary information that let them assign probabilities to different alternatives. Uncertainty is a situation in which a decision maker has neither certainty nor reasonable probability estimates available. Under these conditions, The choice of alternative is influenced by the limited amount of available information and by the psychological orientation of the decision maker.
So let's move on to decision-making styles. There are two decision-making styles: linear thinking style and non-linear thinking style. Linear thinking style is a person's tendency to use external data or facts. It is the habit of processing information through rational and logical thinking. Non-linear thinking style is a person's preference for internal sources of information. It is a method of processing this information with internal insights, feelings, and hunches. Let's move on to decision-making biases and errors. Heuristics is using rules of thumb to simplify decision-making. Overconfidence bias is holding unrealistically positive views of oneself and one's performance. Immediate gratification bias is choosing alternatives that offer immediate rewards and avoid immediate goals. Anchoring effect is fixating on initial information and ignoring subsequent information. Selective perception bias is selecting, organizing, and interpreting events based on the decision maker's past perceptions. Confirmation bias is seeking out information that reaffirms past choices while discarding contradictory information. Framing bias is selecting and highlighting certain aspects of a situation while ignoring other aspects. Availability bias is losing decision-making objectivity by focusing on the most recent events. Representing bias is drawing analogies and seeing identical situations when none exist. Randomness bias is creating unfounded meaning out of random events. Sanko's errors is forgetting that current action cannot influence past events and relate only to future consequences. Self-serving bias is taking quick credit for successes and blaming outside factors for failures. Hindsight bias is mistakenly believing that an event could have been predicted once the actual outcome is known after the fact. In conclusion, there are 12 common decision-making biases. They are overconfidence, immediate gratification, anchoring effect, selective perception, confirmation, framing, availability, representation, randomness, Sankos, self-serving, and hindsight. Last but not least, I want to give you guys an overview of managerial decision making. To begin with, there are three decision making approaches. They are rationality, bounded rationality, intuition. Then there are some decision making errors and biases, as I have said before. And decision is choosing the best alternative, maximizing satisfaction, implementing and evaluating. And there are two decision maker styles: linear thinking style and non-linear thinking style. There are three decision making conditions: certainty, risk, and uncertainty. There are two types of problems and decisions. They are well-structured, programmed, and unstructured, non-programmed.
Now we're going to move to part number 5, which know about how effective decision making in today's world. Today's business world revolves around making decisions, often with risky ones, usually with incomplete or inaccurate information and under intense time pressures. What do managers need to do to make effective decisions in today's fast-moving world? First, we're going to take a look at some suggested guidelines, and then we're going to discuss an into interesting new line of thinking called design thinking. This decision making is a serious business, as you guys know, because it's involved because the decision making will determine how your organizational performance is evaluated or not. So there are 5 essential things that you need to bear in mind in order to conduct effective decision. Firstly, understanding cultural differences, creating standard for good decision making, knowing when it's time to call it quit, which you can easily understand it at when there are evidence that show your decision is not working. Don't be afraid to pull the plug. You an effective decision making process. Develop your ability to think clearly so you can make a better choice at work and in your life. Now we're going to discuss about new line of thinking, which called design thinking. So, design thinking means open up your perspective and gaining insight by using observation and inquiry skill and not relying on rational analysis, which is different from decision making with applying a rational and analytical mindset. Decision thinking is like you have a different view or view of the same process. With like when you got a problem, and instead of you analytical mindset, you should like it's more about the feeling, and you use the another perspective of you to see the problem, not only about analytical. Because design thinking is more focused is on the affected people, their feeling, knowledge, belief, and attitude.
About the case application 1 tasting success. In this case, Coke's production of simply orange juice is an unstructured problem that involves complicated algorithms and complex applications of business analytics. By creating the Black Book, an algorithm of blending orange juice, Coke has created a structural problem where managers can blend juices according to the instructions. The question number 2. Black Book allows managers to blend patches of juice to match certain taste and consistency. The Black Book produces an algorithm that allows managers to include external data and tweak recipes as needed based on factors like weather patterns, crop use, and other cost pressures to tweak recipes constantly. The question number 3. According to the purchasing director for Coke's massive Florida juice packaging facility, the process of making orange juice requires some 1 quintillion. The orange juice formula includes detailed data about more than 600 different flavors that make up an orange, and about customer references. Question number 4. Revenue analytics is the application of discipline analytics that predict consumer behavior in the market and optimize product viability and pricing to maximize revenue growth. The primary aim of revenue analytics is selling the right product to the right customer at the right time for the right price. In revenue analytics, it is necessary to understand the customer's perception of product value and accurately aligning product price, placement, and availability with its customer segment.
Move to the case number 2, the business of baseball. From my perspective, baseball has the most decision to be made out of the big four sport. Is it because every single latch pitch is a decision, whether you want it pitch high, low, inside, outside. Most decisions in baseball are structure problem, and they are easily definable. In a structure problem, the goal of the decision is clear, the problem are familiar, and the information for the problem is defined and complete. Why the instruct problem are not the things that you face every day, and for example, such as during the game, the star player was going down with an injury. So as the manager, you should make a decision how to avoid the left by the injury. So I don't think there are any certainty in any sport. And beside that, you should have as much grades as you can and as little certainty as possible. I think it's also appropriate for a baseball manager to use only quantitative, objective criteria in evaluating their players. But I also suggest them to incorporate qualitative and subjective criteria in evaluating their player also. Baseball front office executive and college coach can use each of the following to make better decisions, such as intuition. The coach can use intuition when telling a player to steal a base. Decision will come out from instinct and immediately respond to the situation rather than conciliate thinking about it. And I don't think there's too much information in managing the business of baseball, because it's had worked for years. They really found a good way to make decision and be successful over the year. Therefore, I think it is a good decision making business.